What's going on, guys? BoxInOne here. College Hoops Talks again. Today we're going to talk about Duke star Cameron Boozer. I want to dive straight into it. The number one concern about Cameron Boozer has not been his skill set, because he's by far one of the most complete prospects in the draft, offensively, defensively, as a 6'9" guy, being able to get into the passing lanes, fast break, transition, facilitation. He does it all on the basketball court. He's like a Swiss Army knife, utilitarian. We can put him anywhere and he's going to have a positive impact. I think the issue a lot of people have with him is not his play style, it's not his IQ, it's not his shot selection. All of that is great. The issue is simple. He's a 6'9" center, and in today's NBA, when you're going to be going body for body with Wemby, with Jokic, with Embiid, with Bam, with all these guys, you're pretty much undersized. It's not a pretty much. You are undersized against those guys. But today I want to talk about what we think the future for Cameron Boozer is in the NBA and why we really shouldn't be worried about the kid, because he's going to be more than fine. Now, just to start things off, being 6'9", I don't think, in fact, I highly doubt that Cameron Boozer is going to be playing center for an NBA team. I mean, there are a few teams in contention for that number one pick spot. I think it's really interesting, though, because you have the Pacers, you have the Wizards, maybe the Pelicans if they still own that pick, which I don't think they do. They traded one of those picks for Derek Queen. You've got a few teams who are definitely in that lottery number one pick spot potentially, right? When I look at the Pacers, I look at a Pascal Siakam, but I look at a team that doesn't really have a true five. They do have Jay Huff, who's doing good things, but it's not really the same thing as having a Miles Turner, right, who, for what it's worth in that Indiana Pacers system, did great things. Then I look at the Washington Wizards. I look at they probably, if they get the number one pick, should draft AJ DeVanster, right? There's a lot of things Washington is trying to do just to make moves and position themselves to maybe be a contender or at least a play-in team in the next couple of years due to the conglomerate of talent they have. But when I look at Cameron Boozer, I don't see a guy that's going to be a five-man for a team. I don't see a guy that's going to anchor the post against some of these threats aforementioned, right? Bam, Giannis, Jokic, Embiid. I see him as being the evolution of the Kevin Love, Aaron Gordon archetype. That is exactly what I see Cameron Boozer as. It's probably the thumbnail of the Pokemon evolutions between all three of those guys in the thumbnail. He's going to be more than fine. And the reason I say this is because when you have a 6'9" guy who can play down low, Kevin Love was not extremely big, but he still gave you a 30 and 30 game. Aaron Gordon, in his role for the Denver Nuggets, he's not extremely big compared to centers, but he's got the physicality and the defensive acumen to make things harder for centers. He can guard 1 through 5. When you have a guy that can do that, and then on top of that, you have Cameron Boozer, who as a playmaker can develop into a much more advanced playmaker than Kevin Love and Aaron Gordon. I do want to just shout out Kevin Love, though, because that man could throw nukes to LeBron and they would be pinpoint passes. So I'm not saying Cameron Boozer is a playmaker being way better than Kevin Love and Aaron Gordon is a knock on either of those guys. I'm just saying that I think Cameron Boozer's ceiling is a lot higher. When you have a guy that can do that and really is like the next evolution of the role players, right? I mean, a few months ago on this channel, we did a video on the death of the one-way player, particularly when it comes to role players. We talked about guards, right? Like Gary Payton II, for example, on the Golden State Warriors. But we also do want to look at the forward position. You have Aaron Gordon doing what he does. Jaden McDaniels, he's not the same build, but he's a two-way threat. Kevin Love was a two-way threat. Locked up Stephen Curry in 2016. I'm a Warriors fan, so that pains me to admit that, but he did lock Stephen Curry up. I know Stephen Curry also, I believe, had like an MCL sprain or something like that. That's why he missed the Olympics, because he was deciding whether or not to get surgery. But still, when Kevin Love had to get a stop, he absolutely did get a stop. When you have guys like OG Anunoby, who have grown just from being a defensive guy to a two-way guy, Scotty Barnes, who's probably one of, if not the best two-way player for what he does in terms of steals and blocks and playmaking in the Eastern Conference. I know Jaylen Brown is also in that conversation, but just in terms of a defender, I'm probably still taking Scotty Barnes over Jaylen Brown as it stands. That could change, though. I digress. But in a league where we're seeing a lot of these guys at the forward position, Cooper Flagg, rookie, doing similar things, right? Being able to guard 1 through 4 effectively, averaging about a block a game, doing those things. When we see these forwards kind of in this 6'7" to 6'10" range that aren't necessarily creators like Jason Tatum, Paul George, AJ DeVanster, etc., you have guys who are able to fit into that niche of being an incredibly crafty and really necessary role player for winning an NBA championship. I don't want to say that the evolution of Draymond Green, right? Because Draymond Green, I don't think he was getting comps to K-Love coming out of college. But I do think when I look at Draymond Green, he's a guy who can push the pace in his prime. He could give you 16-6 with 2 blocks and 3 steals if needed while shooting about 50% from 3. He's a guy that can facilitate. He can pick and roll. He can guard centers. He can slash. This is all 2016 Draymond Green, by the way. We're not talking about current Draymond Green. That's an entirely different discussion. He can still do those things it might not just be all at the same game. It might be like 1 every 10 games, but he can still do those things from time to time. What I'm saying is teams need guys like that to win championships, right? When we look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, J-Dub locking it on defense, Caruso locking it on defense, Chet, the Oklahoma City Thunder don't even necessarily have an Aaron Gordon type player, but they have guys with the Aaron Gordon type niche, or they can be two-way, right? When you look at the Nuggets, they had Aaron Gordon. When you look at the Warriors, they had Otto Porter Jr. and Bielita doing those things. When you look at a team like the Boston Celtics, that's where a guy like a Drew Holiday comes in. Again, not necessarily an Aaron Gordon type guy, but he's definitely a two-way threat. 2025, when we look at the Thunder, we just talked about them. When teams want to win championships, they have those guys that can guard 1 through 4, 1 through 5, also facilitate, sometimes create their own shot, but also Cameron Boozer's not bad from 3 range as a spot-up shooter. When you have a guy like that coming into the league, is he going to be automatic star power? That was such a weak snap. As I was saying, though, is Cameron Boozer necessarily going to have automatic star power potential like AJ DeBansta, like Darren Peterson? Probably not. But when we look at who's going to be playing high-level winning basketball first, depending on where they're drafted, I do think the presence of a guy like a Cameron Boozer is a culture shifter. And I think he's going to be more than fine in the NBA. In fact, I think he might be the future for what teams are looking for in the role player position, that Aaron Gordon, OG Anunoby, even Kevin Love type of comp. And I can't wait to see what he does in Duke come March, and I can't wait to see what he does in the NBA when he gets drafted. With that being said, though, that is going to do it for us today, guys. Again, as always, if you enjoyed the content, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Follow all of the socials in the description, the Twitter/X, the TikTok, the Instagram, the Threads, the YouTube where you're watching this video, and the Spotify where every Box-in-One episode gets posted. Again, as always, if you enjoyed the content, make sure to click that notification bell to be notified when Box-in-One drops new content right away, and we will see you all in the next one.